The information I'm sharing today could be crucial for your family's survival. It's knowledge that emergency management officials wish they could communicate to every home across the nation, though they must be careful not to trigger widespread alarm. Over the past 8 months, I've dedicated myself to examining updated emergency protocols, conducting interviews with disaster management professionals across multiple states, and researching real outcomes from recent catastrophic events. The findings are both alarming and eye-opening. Here's the sobering reality. Emergency response delays have grown dramatically in recent years. Response times that once averaged 4 to 6 hours now stretch to 18 to 24 hours at minimum. In more isolated communities, families may wait up to 4 full days for assistance. That's 4 days of complete self-reliance with zero external support, no incoming supplies, and uncertainty about whether help will arrive at all. The truly concerning data reveals that a vast majority of homes would face critical situations within 72 hours of a major regional emergency. The danger doesn't stem from the disaster itself, but from insufficient basic provisions when modern systems collapse. We're not only discussing natural catastrophes. This encompasses cyber attacks targeting infrastructure, disruptions in distribution networks, social upheaval, or even something as straightforward as a major roadway incident blocking access to your area for extended periods. I'll walk you through 15 essential items that updated emergency guidelines identify as absolute necessities for your household. These aren't suggestions, they're requirements. One particular item on this list is overlooked by nearly everyone, yet during a major winter crisis several years ago, it literally determined survival outcomes for countless households. Before we begin, consider your last extended power failure. How truly prepared were you? How long would your devices have remained functional? What would your nutrition have looked like after several days? Share your experience in the comments because recognizing your current situation is essential for protecting those you care about. Item 1. Water storage and purification. Starting with water is crucial because most people fundamentally misunderstand this requirement. Official recommendations suggest 1 gallon daily per person for 3 days. But the uncomfortable truth they avoid stating publicly is that 3 days proves grossly inadequate in actual emergency situations. I connected with an emergency response coordinator who managed disaster operations during a major Florida hurricane. Her words still resonate. Families arriving at our shelters on the 4th day, desperately seeking water, those were the ones who trusted the 3-day guideline. Her team dealt with water system breakdowns lasting 3 full weeks in certain zones. The situation worsens when you consider storage methods. Many purchase cases of bottled water, place them in hot storage areas, and believe they're covered. Those plastic containers begin releasing harmful chemicals at elevated temperatures. Your storage area might reach extreme heat during summer months, meaning your emergency supply could actually harm you when you need it most. The solution involves proper long-term storage containers, food-grade barrels, or specialized water storage systems designed for extended shelf life. While initially more expensive, the mathematics work in your favor, roughly 30 cents per gallon for water remaining fresh for 5 years, compared to repeatedly purchasing bottles as they expire. The critical element most overlook entirely is purification capability. When stored reserves deplete, you'll need to make questionable water sources drinkable. A quality filtration system isn't recreational equipment, it's essential insurance. When taps run dry and you're facing pond water or collected rainwater as your sole options, reliable purification becomes invaluable. Item 2. Extended food provisions. The second requirement is comprehensive food storage, and we need to dispel dangerous misconceptions immediately. 72-hour food recommendations reflect emergency response capabilities from decades past. They're not merely outdated, they're hazardous in our current reality. A colleague experienced a major Louisiana hurricane. Being intelligent and prepared, he had his 3-day supply perfectly arranged. Canned items, crackers, nut butter, all standard recommendations. Day 4 arrived, and he faced empty storage while stores remained closed for another 10 days. Distribution trucks couldn't navigate flooded routes, and emergency distribution points were overwhelmed and depleted. This experience transformed my entire perspective on emergency nutrition. Caloric density and longevity aren't merely conveniences, they're survival elements. You require 2,000 to 2,500 calories daily per person to maintain energy and wellness during high-stress circumstances.
That accumulates to substantial quantities rapidly. Freeze-dried provisions are costly. I won't minimize that reality. We're discussing $8 to $12 per serving. However, consider this calculation. Those meals maintain viability for 25 to 30 years and serve multiple people. Standard grocery canned goods expire within 2 to 3 years, requiring constant rotation. When you calculate replacement expenses over time, freeze-dried nutrition actually becomes the most economical protection you'll purchase. Beyond mere calories, something deeper emerges. I interviewed households who endured extended isolation during early pandemic periods. They consistently reported the hardest aspect wasn't dramatic circumstances, it was the psychological toll of consuming monotonous, uninspiring food day after day. Having meals that actually provide satisfaction isn't about indulgence, it's about preserving mental wellness when everything else feels unstable. Item 3. Communication systems. Third on critical lists is emergency communication capability, extending far beyond simply having a battery-powered receiver in storage. During major disasters, people perished not because rescuers weren't searching, but because they couldn't effectively signal for assistance or receive vital information about evacuation pathways and aid locations. Contemporary emergency communication requires multiple layers. You need something receiving weather alert frequencies, AM/FM broadcasts for news updates, and shortwave bands for emergency service communications. The crucial factor, it requires multiple power sources because worst-case scenarios apply exponentially during disasters. I've evaluated numerous emergency receivers, and here's what actually functions when everything else fails. Hand crank capability for complete battery depletion, solar charging for sustained use, and USB connections to charge your mobile device. Your phone isn't merely for social connection during emergencies, it's for navigation, emergency applications, and potentially calling for help if cellular towers remain operational. Let me share what occurred during a Caribbean hurricane that demonstrates why this matters critically. A colleague was without electricity for 4 months. His emergency receiver wasn't just obtaining weather updates, it was providing information about aid station locations, passable routes, medical assistance availability, and which neighborhoods were receiving power restoration first. That receiver became his connection to the external world and literally guided his household to resources, keeping them alive. The professional tip here, program emergency frequencies before you need them. Download the emergency frequency list for your region immediately and program them into your receiver because crisis moments aren't appropriate for learning equipment operation. Item 4. Medical supplies and prescriptions. The fourth critical requirement is an extensive medical supply cache, and this is where updated guidelines become genuinely serious. During emergencies, hospitals become overwhelmed rapidly. We're discussing 12 to 18-hour wait periods for non-critical injuries. And if roadways are blocked or widespread infrastructure damage exists, you might be unable to reach medical assistance for days or weeks. Here's what most don't grasp. Minor injuries can become life-threatening without proper intervention. A simple laceration becoming infected, a burn not treated appropriately, even dehydration from digestive issues can escalate into severe problems when you cannot access professional medical care. Basic medical supply lists include obvious items, bandages, antiseptic solutions, pain medication. But here's what doesn't receive enough emphasis, and it's critical. Prescription medication reserves. If anyone in your household takes daily medication, cardiac medication, diabetes medication, hypertension medication, mental health medication, you need at minimum a 30-day emergency supply. Most physicians are willing to prescribe an additional month's worth for emergency preparedness. The key is explaining it's for disaster readiness, not for advancing refill schedules. Some insurance providers even cover emergency prescription supplies specifically for this purpose. Here's where it becomes genuinely important. I analyzed disaster medical reports from recent emergencies, And you know what causes the most preventable fatalities? Chronic conditions that get disrupted. People with diabetes unable to access insulin. Cardiac patients unable to obtain their medication. Elderly individuals unable to get hypertension medication.
These aren't traumatic injuries. They're slow developing medical emergencies that claim lives when normal healthcare access vanishes. The game changer is having basic diagnostic equipment, digital thermometers, blood pressure monitors, glucose monitors if anyone in your household is diabetic. These instruments help you determine when someone is becoming seriously ill versus just uncomfortable, which could literally mean the difference between life and death when medical help is days away. Now, before I continue with remaining critical items, I want to share something that could transform your entire approach to emergency preparedness. I recently discovered a resource bringing together everything we're discussing, and honestly, I wish I had found this years ago when I was first learning about disaster readiness. There's a comprehensive guide walking you through not just what supplies you need, but exactly how to organize them, where to store them, and most importantly, how to use them effectively when disaster strikes. What I appreciate about this resource is that it goes beyond mere lists. It provides psychological and practical strategies separating families who thrive during disasters from those who barely survive. You can check it out at the link in the description below. It's called the Ultimate Disaster Preparedness Guide. It includes detailed checklists, storage solutions, and even communication plans for your household. I'll mention it again later, but if you're serious about protecting your family, it's worth examining while we're discussing these critical supplies. Item 5. Multi-layer lighting systems. The fifth item on critical lists is a layered illumination system, and most people approach this completely incorrectly. They purchase a couple of flashlights, place them in storage, and believe they're prepared. Let me paint a scenario that'll change how you think about emergency lighting permanently. It's day 3 of a widespread electrical failure. Your phone died yesterday because you couldn't recharge it. Your children are frightened because it's completely dark, and you're attempting to prepare dinner by holding a tiny flashlight in your mouth while you open containers and cook on a portable stove. Sounds stressful? It intensifies. Emergency management now recommends what they term a 3-layer illumination approach. Layer 1 is personal lighting, headlamps for each household member. Hands-free illumination that follows where you're looking is transformative for any task requiring both hands. Cooking, medical care, repairs, even just moving safely through your residence. Layer 2 is area lighting, lanterns that can illuminate entire rooms. Solar-powered inflatable lanterns are remarkable for this. They're lightweight, compress when not in use, and some produce enough light to comfortably read by. But here's the key. They charge during daytime and provide illumination all night without consuming any of your stored battery power. But layer 3 is what most people miss completely, and it could save your life. Emergency beacon lights. These are extremely bright, flashing LED lights that can signal for help from miles away. During major flooding disasters, rescue teams were locating stranded people using these beacon lights when everything else failed. A $15 beacon light literally meant the difference between being found quickly and being trapped for days. The critical factor is power management. Each layer needs different power sources: rechargeable batteries for daily use, disposable batteries for extended emergencies, and solar charging capability for long-term disasters. I learned this lesson during a week-long electrical outage 2 winters ago. I had flashlights, but after day 2, I was rationing battery usage like it was precious metal. Having multiple charging options meant I could actually use illumination when I needed it, instead of stumbling around in darkness. Item 6. Shelter enhancement materials. Item 6 is something emergency management added after analyzing damage from recent disasters: shelter enhancement materials. When disaster strikes, you might have roof damage, broken windows, or structural issues, but emergency services are overwhelmed dealing with life-threatening situations. You could be waiting weeks for professional repair assistance. Current recommendations include heavy-duty tarps, not the inexpensive ones that tear in wind, but reinforced vinyl tarps that can actually protect against weather, plus strong tape, rope, bungee cords, and basic tools.
These aren't just for repairs, they're for emergency modifications that could save your life. But here's where it becomes genuinely intelligent. They also recommend plastic sheeting and tape for creating what they call safe rooms.
If there's a chemical spill, hazardous air quality from wildfires, or even a pandemic situation, you need the ability to seal off part of your residence and create a clean air environment. My neighbor learned this during California wildfires last year. Smoke was so dense outside that you couldn't breathe safely. The air quality index exceeded 300 hazardous levels. But with plastic sheeting and tape, she created a clean air room for her household, including her children who have asthma. That simple setup kept them healthy when evacuation wasn't possible because roads were blocked. Item 7. Fire safety and starting equipment. The 7th critical item might sound contradictory, both fire suppression and fire starting equipment, but there's a crucial reason emergency guidelines recommend both. Fire suppression is obvious. You need multiple fire extinguishers, smoke detectors with battery backup, and escape ladders if you live in a multi-story residence. But here's what most people don't know. Fire types require different extinguishers. You need Class A for regular materials, Class B for flammable liquids, and Class C for electrical fires. Using the wrong type can actually make some fires worse. But fire starting capability is equally critical. When electricity is out and gas lines might be compromised, you need safe methods to cook food and heat water. Waterproof matches, magnesium fire starters, and portable camping stoves with fuel canisters aren't just camping equipment, they're survival instruments. Here's a story driving this home. During a major Texas winter emergency, my friend's gas line actually froze solid. Electricity was out, but she still needed to heat baby formula for her 6-month-old. Having a portable butane stove literally kept her baby fed when all conventional heating methods failed. That $30 stove was invaluable in that situation. The key is having multiple ignition sources, because worst-case scenarios apply exponentially during emergencies. Waterproof matches, disposable lighters, magnesium fire starters, and even a magnifying glass for solar ignition if you have sunny weather. Item 8. Comprehensive sanitation supplies. Let's discuss Item 8, something nobody wants to address, but everyone needs to understand. Comprehensive sanitation supplies. What happens when toilets stop flushing and showers stop working? Emergency management learned from major hurricanes that sanitation failures claim lives just as quickly as food and water shortages. We're discussing moist towelettes, hand sanitizer, feminine hygiene products, diapers if you have small children, and here's the significant one that most people never consider: waste disposal supplies, heavy-duty garbage bags, heavy ties, and portable toilet supplies. The brutal reality is that when sewage systems fail, disease spreads rapidly. Cholera, dysentery, hepatitis, these aren't developing world problems. They appear anywhere sanitation systems break down, and they can claim healthy adults in days. But here's something most don't consider: psychological hygiene. Being able to clean yourself, brush your teeth, and maintain basic personal care isn't just about preventing disease. It's about maintaining dignity and mental wellness when everything else is chaos. I remember reading interviews with families during extended isolation periods who said that simple things like having cleaning wipes for faces and hands made them feel human again when everything else felt hopeless. Mental health during disasters is just as critical as physical health. Item 9. Physical cash reserves. Item 9 is something that could save your household when everything else fails: physical currency and small denominations. Here's what most Americans don't understand about how quickly our digital economy can collapse. When power grids fail, credit cards don't work, ATMs don't work, digital payments don't work. You're back to a cash-only economy instantly, and most people have zero cash on hand. During a major East Coast hurricane, I interviewed someone who had substantial money in his bank accounts, but couldn't access any of it. Electricity was out for weeks, banks were closed, and ATMs were dead. He watched neighbors trade cash for gasoline, food, and basic supplies, while he had nothing to offer despite being financially well off. Current recommendations include keeping at minimum $500 in cash. But here's the critical detail: small bills. We're discussing ones, fives, tens, and 20s. When someone's selling batteries for $10 during an emergency, you don't want to hand them a $100 bill and hope for change. But here's where cash becomes real leverage.
It's not just for purchasing things, it's for obtaining help. Need someone to clear a fallen tree from your driveway? Cash talks when credit cards don't work. Need a neighbor to share their generator power?
Cash provides immediate incentive when normal economic systems have failed. Store currency in multiple waterproof containers in different locations throughout your residence. And here's an uncomfortable truth: don't tell people about it. During desperate times, even good neighbors can make poor decisions if they know you have resources they desperately need. Item 10. Essential document copies. The 10th critical item is copies of all your important documents in waterproof storage. This doesn't sound exciting until you need it, then it becomes absolutely crucial. Insurance policies, identification documents, bank account information, medical records, and family contact lists. When disaster strikes, you might need to prove who you are, file insurance claims, or access financial accounts. But your original documents might be destroyed or inaccessible. I have a friend who lost everything in a house fire 2 years ago. Everything. But because she had copies of her insurance policies, identification, and financial information in a fireproof safe, she could start the recovery process immediately. Her neighbors were waiting weeks just to prove they existed to insurance companies. The intelligent approach is digital copies on a waterproof USB drive, plus physical copies in a fireproof document safe. Include backup contact information for family members who live outside your immediate area, because local communication might be down while long-distance communication still works. Item 11. Climate control equipment. Here's item 11, and this is something 94% of Americans completely overlook: emergency heating and cooling capability. Extreme temperatures claim more lives during disasters than almost any other factor, but it's preventable with proper preparation. For heating, you need safe indoor heating sources. Kerosene heaters with proper ventilation, sleeping bags rated for cold temperatures, and thermal blankets. But here's the critical safety factor: carbon monoxide detectors with battery backup. Improper indoor heating claims families every year during power outages. For cooling, battery-powered fans, cooling towels, and electrolyte replacement supplies. Heat stroke is a genuine killer, especially for elderly household members or anyone with health conditions. During a major Pacific Northwest heat event, hundreds of people died from heat-related causes, many because they had no method to cool down when air conditioning failed. The key is redundancy and safety. Have multiple heating sources, multiple cooling methods, and always prioritize safety over comfort. A portable heater producing carbon monoxide will claim your life just as certainly as freezing temperatures. Item 12. Tools and hardware. The 12th item is a quality multi-tool and basic hardware supplies. When disaster strikes, you become your own maintenance crew, repair service, and construction team. Having proper tools can literally save your life. We're discussing a good multi-tool with pliers, screwdrivers, and a sharp knife, plus basic hardware: screws, nails, wire, zip ties, and a small hammer. These aren't just for repairs, they're for emergency modifications to your living space. Need to board up a broken window? Secure a tarp over roof damage? Create a makeshift shelter? Having basic tools and hardware makes the difference between successfully adapting to damage and being helpless while your situation deteriorates. Organization is key here. Keep everything in a clearly labeled toolbox that's easy to grab during an emergency, because when you're stressed and dealing with damage, you don't want to waste precious time hunting for the right tool. Item 13. Portable power generation. Item 13 is portable power generation, and this has become critical as our dependence on electronic devices has increased. Your phone isn't just entertainment during an emergency. It's GPS navigation, emergency communication, flashlight, and access to critical information. Solar power banks, hand crank generators, and portable battery stations can keep your essential devices running when grid electricity fails. But here's the key: focus on essential devices only. Don't attempt to power your entire house. Prioritize communication devices, lighting, and medical equipment. I learned this lesson during an ice storm that knocked out power for 10 days. Having a method to charge phones and power LED lights meant we could stay informed, communicate with family, and maintain some normalcy while neighbors were completely cut off from the outside world. Item 14. Personal protection and security. The 14th item is something emergency management doesn't advertise heavily but includes in their guidelines:
personal protection, and security measures. During disasters, normal law enforcement response is delayed or unavailable, and some people make desperate decisions.
This includes door and window reinforcement supplies, motion sensor lights with battery backup, and noise-making devices like air horns or whistles. The goal isn't to become a fortress, it's to make your residence less attractive to opportunistic criminals who know emergency services are overwhelmed. But personal protection goes beyond just security from other people. It includes work gloves for handling debris, safety goggles for working in dusty or smoky conditions, and sturdy boots for walking through damaged areas safely. Item 15, psychological resilience supplies. The final item on critical lists is something most people never consider, but can make the difference between psychological breakdown and maintaining hope: comfort and morale supplies. This includes games or activities for children, books or entertainment for adults, comfort foods that provide psychological relief, and items that maintain normalcy, like coffee, tea, or favorite snacks. I know this sounds trivial compared to water and medical supplies, but I've interviewed dozens of disaster survivors, and they consistently say the same thing. Maintaining mental health and family morale was just as critical as meeting basic physical needs. Children especially need psychological anchors during traumatic situations. Having familiar games, toys, or activities can mean the difference between a child who can cope with the situation and one who becomes traumatized by it. Here's the bottom line that emergency management can't say directly, but wants every American to understand. Disasters are getting more frequent, more severe, and more widespread. Climate change is creating unprecedented weather events. Our infrastructure is aging and vulnerable, supply chains are more fragile than ever, and emergency response capabilities are stretched thinner each year. You don't need to purchase everything at once. Start with the most critical items, water, food, communication, and build gradually. But start now, because the best time to prepare was last year, and the second best time is today. If this information found valuable and you want to take your disaster preparedness to the next level, remember to check out that comprehensive guide I mentioned earlier. You can find the link in the description. It's the ultimate disaster preparedness guide that goes way deeper than just supply lists. It includes step-by-step organization strategies, family communication plans, and the psychological preparation that can make the difference between thriving during a disaster and barely surviving. The goal isn't to become a paranoid prepper living in fear. The goal is to become the neighbor who has what they need when crisis hits, so you can help others instead of needing help yourself. Your future self will thank you for taking action today, and your family will thank you if that action ever becomes the reason they stay safe during the unthinkable. If this video opened your eyes to how unprepared most Americans really are, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm constantly researching disaster preparedness trends, supply chain vulnerabilities, and emergency response updates so you don't have to. Drop a comment below telling me which of these 15 items you're prioritizing first. I read every single comment, and it helps other viewers see what people are focusing on. Remember, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Your family's safety might depend on the decisions you make today.